I never believed in the old stories, but now I wish I had. It was supposed to be just another road trip, another chance to escape the mundane grind, the demands of city life, the constant hum of machinery and people. A few of us had set our sights on the national parks, places steeped in history, mystery, and folklore. I used to think the stories about these parks were just that, stories. My friends said it'd be an adventure, a way to test ourselves against the wild, but I had a feeling this place was different from the start. The first day was normal enough. Towering trees and the earthy scent of moss surrounded us, a living, breathing forest that felt strangely untouched, almost like it was watching us. We set up camp near a river that trickled gently over smooth stones. The sunlight was gentle, dappling the forest floor in shifting patches of warmth. Birds chirped and insects hummed. It felt like nature's own lullaby. But as the day wore on, things began to shift. The light faded faster than it should, long shadows stretching over the clearing, swallowing the warmth, leaving a chill that bit through my layers. That night, we huddled around the campfire, sharing stories, most of them just cheap thrills, ghost tales we'd heard in school or the odd urban legend. When it came to my turn, I hesitated, then recounted something I'd heard a while back. A Cherokee legend about the Sulkalu, the slant-eyed giant. They say he roams these forests, a guardian, sometimes benevolent, but merciless to trespassers. My voice trailed off as an eerie silence settled around us. The crickets had gone still, and the rustle of leaves had vanished. It felt like the forest itself was holding its breath, listening. We laughed it off, chalking it up to an overactive imagination. But inside, I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. As I lay in my tent that night, I heard faint whispers drifting through the trees, soft voices that seemed to circle us, moving through the darkness. I couldn't make out words, only fragments, a laugh, a murmur, a distant cry. I wanted to write it off as wind, but it felt too purposeful, too alive. The second day was worse. When we ventured deeper into the forest, we began noticing strange markings on the trees. They weren't natural, not scratches from animals or patterns from insects. These were symbols, lines crossed and spiraled in odd patterns, strange figures like faces with hollow eyes carved into the bark. They were everywhere, each more twisted and gnarled than the last. The deeper we went, the more intricate the symbols became, and the more it felt like we were intruding on something ancient, something meant to stay hidden. As we tried to make sense of them, a figure appeared on the trail ahead. An old man, dressed in worn clothes, his face hidden beneath a hood. He looked like he'd stepped out of another era, skin lined like bark, eyes sharp and dark. He warned us, his voice gravelly and low, about the creatures that dwelled in these woods, things that don't take kindly to strangers. He spoke of shadows that moved when you weren't looking, of sounds that lured you off the path, of eyes that never blinked. Before we could ask more, he vanished back into the trees as if he'd never been there. That night, we were too spooked to stray far from the fire. The laughter and ease of the first night were gone, replaced by anxious glances over shoulders, the occasional shiver and nervous silence. Every crack of a branch made us jump. Every flicker of the fire cast shadows that seemed to creep closer, stretching toward us. It was around midnight when I heard it, a low, guttural growl from beyond the trees. My heart raced, and I turned to see if anyone else had heard, but the look in their eyes told me enough. We sat, frozen, listening as the growls circled us, weaving through the trees, closer one moment, then distant the next, as if whatever was out there was toying with us. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse, the temperature dropped, an icy chill creeping up from the ground, seeping through my bones. The fire began to flicker and then dimmed, as if the night itself was swallowing the light. In the dim glow, I saw it, a shape lurking just beyond the trees, a shadow too tall to be human, limbs distorted, a face like the ones carved into the trees, hollow eyes staring back at us. It swayed in the darkness, its movements unnatural, as if it were both there and not there. In a panic, we decided to break camp and get out. But as we tried to leave, we realized that the path we had come in on had vanished. The forest seemed to shift, twisting around us, leading us in circles, no matter which direction we took. The symbols on the trees had multiplied, staring down at us, mocking our desperation. At some point I fell, scraping my hands against the rough ground. And then I saw it. A new symbol scratched into the dirt, one I hadn't seen before. It looked like a spiral, but as I stared at it, it seemed to twist, pulling at my mind, disorienting me, making me feel like I was sinking deeper into the ground. My friends pulled me to my feet and we ran, blindly crashing through the trees, desperation driving us forward. By the time we reached what we thought was the edge of the forest, dawn was breaking, but the light seemed pale, almost sickly. There was no warmth in it, only a cold gray hue that cast long shadows on the ground. We were about to break into a run when I saw him again. The old man, standing at the edge of the trail, watching us with those piercing eyes. "You're marked now," he said, a grim smile on his lips. "The forest remembers." I wanted to ask him what he meant, but his figure seemed to blur, dissolving into the shadows. When I turned back, he was gone, leaving us alone with the echo of his words. Now, back home, I can't shake the feeling that something followed us. Shadows seem to stretch longer than they should. Whispers echo from empty rooms. And sometimes in the still of night, I feel eyes on me, unblinking, watching from the darkness. I try to tell myself it's all in my head, that we left whatever was in that forest behind, but some nights, I wonder if we ever truly left at all.